spiritual fitness is like being physically fit. So to be physically fit, you don't just go to the gym and get in shape and then stop going to the gym. If you stop going to the gym, you're going to lose your physical fitness. And so I think getting in shape physically, it's hard to do. But then once you're in shape physically, you still have to continue eating the right foods and you still have to continue exercising. That's the same thing with spiritual fitness. It's harder to become spiritually fit, but once you're spiritually fit, it's easier to maintain, but you have to continue doing those things that you did when you first got clean and sober. And so I've got lots of questions that I'm going to answer today. I did my 13-week series, How to Avoid a Relapse, and that included 5 secrets to avoiding a relapse and 5 mistakes that lead to a relapse and how to avoid them. I've gotten lots of questions from people that they posted in the comment section. So if you have a question based upon what you're hearing from me today, feel free to post it in the comment section and I will get to it next time I go live. And the first question that I received, how long should I be sober before I start dating? And what if I just want to sleep around? Okay, so that's a good question. And I've already answered how long should I be sober before I start dating. The rule of thumb is you wait a year. And at the very least, so this is what my sponsor said to me. I mean, it took me almost a year to work through the steps, which that was the right amount of time for me. Some people like working through the steps more quickly, some people more slowly, and I worked through them. It took me about a year. Now, that's not to say I was constantly working the steps, though. I never stopped. So that means step 1, 2, 3, that was 1 week each. Step 4 took me several weeks. It took me probably about a month. And then I did step 5, step 6. So my process, like I said, took me just about a year. And I remember when I was getting close to a year, I was probably at about 9 months sober. And I said to my sponsor, hey, I really I'm ready. I'm starting to get the itch here and I really want to start dating. And he said, let's get you through the steps first, because if you start dating before you finish the steps, then your focus changes. Your focus changes from doing the steps to dating and finding the next relationship. And really, the next relationship can be the solution, which leads to the next question. What if I just want to sleep around? So you're not necessarily ready to date. You don't want to date and you just want to sleep around. And I've seen this a lot, because sex is a drug. Sex can be the replacement for drinking and using. Sex is the solution. Again, takes you off of the pain, takes you off of when you're feeling restless, irritable, and discontent. You can just go out and have sex and it makes you feel better. It's the solution and it lasts about 5 minutes. So what I would say is talk to your sponsor, talk to your friends that are in recovery. Sleeping around it's just another solution. It's another drug. It's a replacement for the drink and the drug. And then as soon as the sex goes away, then you go back to feeling the guilt and the shame and whatever feelings you're feeling. So really focusing on working the steps, getting through the steps before you can start building fulfilling relationships, because that's really what we're all after, is fulfillment. We want fulfillment. We want to be happy, joyous, and free. And being in a healthy relationship, and that's healthy relationships all around, whether they're intimate relationships with a person that you want to have sex with, or just having an intimate relationship. And actually, we were out to dinner last night. I was with my nephew and my sister and my girlfriend and my niece, and we were talking about relationships. And my nephew said that he has a group of men that he lives with, and they have really deep relationships. And he even mentioned that a few of them cry here or there. And I can relate that to AA meetings. I mean, the first time I ever cried in front of other men was at an AA meeting. And I've gone through lots of things while in recovery that have led to tears. And I've seen lots of other men that have gotten to tears. So I think sexual intimacy and intimacy are two different things. And I've learned to have intimate relationships, which means below the surface. And there's a good definition of it, which is a shared safe space for people that can get vulnerable. It doesn't go exactly like that. It's something along those lines. So I don't know if that answers the question. What if I just want to sleep around? I'm not a fan of just sleeping around. I think that sleeping around, what it means is it takes you away from doing the steps. It takes you away from doing the work. And really, when you're sleeping around, there's always lying associated with sleeping around. You're not honest. It's like, can you live the principles in all of your affairs while you're sleeping around? Can you be an honest person? Can you be open? Can you and you might be able to. And hey, I've seen people that have been able to do that. So as long as you're being honest, you're doing the next right thing, there's no guilt and shame associated with your sleeping around, then hey, go for it. But what I would say is talk to your sponsor, talk to your friends that you're close to, that know you, and that will help you make the right decision on that. Next question. Can I sleep around and not cause harm to others? So I see this as well. And I have lots of friends that are in the program. And quite honestly, I see lots of people that they're in relationships and they're still sleeping around, or I don't know. It's okay. So working a 12-step program means that you're working an honest program. You're doing the next right thing. You're not hurting other people. So if you are in a relationship, so if you're sleeping with someone and you can be completely open and honest, then I don't know, maybe you're not, I mean, as long as you're not causing harm. So I guess that's the main thing. I have a friend, I was talking with him the other day, and he's in a relationship, but they broke up. So they're not totally together. I mean, I don't know. I've only heard his perspective, so I haven't heard her perspective. Does she think that they're really in a committed relationship? I'm not sure. He says that, no, she kind of knows that I'm doing other things too. So he's got some other women that he's kind of hanging out with and having sex with. And he also told me that one of the girls that he's having sex with has a boyfriend. And I'm like, dude, how is that right? How is that living the principles in all your affairs? So I would say in that case, absolutely not. I mean, because if you're sleeping with someone that is in a committed relationship, that means that person is lying to the other person, I would imagine, unless everybody knows that the relationship is open. I mean, hey, these are just my opinions. And I know that I have to be honest and I have to do the next right thing. And if I owe someone an amends, that means I'm selfish, afraid, dishonest, or I have a resentment. Those are the big four things when I'm doing my 10th step. Selfish, self-centered, am I dishonest? And if you're sleeping around, I don't know how, I just don't really see it being possible in most cases that you're completely open and honest if you're sleeping with multiple people. It's just not possible. And I know if that was me and I was sleeping with multiple people, I'm not 100% honest. That leads to the guilt and the shame, which leads to me feeling restless, irritable, and discontent, which maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week or the week after, or even next month. Maybe I'm not going to go out and drink right away. I'm not going to go out and use right away, but that's alcoholic behavior. It's alcoholic behavior. That's the behavior of an addict. And that's going to take you down eventually. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually it's going to take you down if you're sleeping around and you're not being completely honest. So I think that's the main thing is talk to your sponsor, and you got to be. So I also have people in my life and men in my life that I that are going to tell me the truth. And so this is my sponsor, and I have other men in my life. They're going to tell me the truth. So if I'm not doing the next right thing, if I'm being dishonest, they're going to call me on it. They're going to call me on my bullshit. And I have other people in my life that I can kind of halfway tell them the truth, and they're going to co-sign it. They're going to be okay with it. They're going to say, oh, that's okay. And those aren't the people that are going to help me stay sober. I mean, they're just not. The people that are going to help me stay sober are the people that are telling me the truth. And I know that anybody that tells me the truth, that's holding me accountable to living the life that I want to be, to being the man that I want to be, is going to tell me that it's not okay. Again, this is my opinion. Okay, I've been sober for almost a year. Is it okay to date someone that isn't sober? So I definitely have an opinion on this. So I got clean and sober. I didn't date for my first year. So I took the suggestion. I worked the steps. I focused on healing. I focused on getting to the root of my addiction. I focused on building relationships with people, intimate relationships, not sexual intimacy, intimate relationships, meaning below the surface. And I learned how to get vulnerable with other people, men and women. And when I was ready to start dating, after I finished the steps, after it was at about a year, I remember I did start dating a woman at about a year and a half sober. And she was, I guess, a quote unquote normie. And so she liked to drink. And I would say that she liked to drink a little more than I really cared for. And the first time she really drank more than I was okay with or felt comfortable with was we went to a Halloween party. She got super wasted. There were a lot of people at this party that were super wasted, and I didn't like it. I mean, and even being clean and sober today, I can be around people. I've been sober for a while, so I can be around people that are drinking way more than I'm comfortable with. And actually, I'm fine. I look at them and I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't have the urge to drink or use. I look at them and I'm like, okay, they're completely wasted. That's not what I want to be like. Now, if I were to do that all the time, then it might be a different story. So going back to the woman that I dated, I'm going to call her Sally. I don't want to use her real name. Sally was successful in her life. She was not an alcoholic or drug addict, or she was a quote unquote normie, but she liked to drink a lot occasionally. I mean, she was a doctor. She was successful professionally, but she liked to get wasted every once in a while. And the first time she got super wasted, we were at this Halloween party. She was wasted and I wasn't having fun. And I'm still really early on in my recovery. My recovery was solid. I went to lots of meetings. I went to 1 or 2 meetings every single day. I had a sponsor. I worked the steps. I had sponsees at that time that I was working with. So I was fully immersed in the 12-step program. So my sobriety, my recovery was solid. It was solid. But she was drinking and she was using and she was super wasted and I didn't like it. And the way that I acted towards her, it really wasn't fair. I mean, because I'm powerless over people, places, and things. And I learned that in recovery as well. It's like, hey, she wants to drink and use, like that's her deal. I get to make the decision. I remember getting mad and kind of throwing a hissy fit about the whole thing. I wouldn't do that today, but that back then, that was the way I acted because I wasn't comfortable with it. I didn't like it. And I don't know, I kind of threw a tantrum, I guess is the best way to put it. And it wasn't right of me to do that because she gets to do what she wants to do. And being an alcoholic or drug addict is self-diagnosed. So she gets to decide if she's an alcoholic or drug addict. I get to decide if I want to spend time with her. I get to decide if I want to be in a relationship with her. And that's my choice. So really, I start having a resentment because she likes to get wasted. Oh, she liked to smoke weed also. And she would actually hide it from me because she knew that I didn't like it. And again, It's her choice. She wants to smoke weed. She gets to smoke weed. I get to decide whether or not I'm in a relationship. So I have been in a few relationships since I've gotten clean and sober. And I think early on I had, for the most part, I am not going to date someone that's going to drink and use drugs. I'm not going to. It's just not what I want. It's not what I want in my life. It's not who I want to be around. And I'm okay. I'm in a relationship right now with a woman that's a normie, but she doesn't really drink. She could drink. She probably would drink more if she was around people that drank more often, but she is super into health and fitness. I'm super into health and fitness. That's what I want my life to look like. And she doesn't like being hungover. She doesn't like the feeling she gets from drinking or the day after anyways. So she chooses not to drink. I find it better for me to spend time, generally speaking, with people that don't drink and don't do drugs. And I do have acquaintances, I do have friends that like to drink, and that that's not my close circle though. So that's it for that question. Can I have two sponsors? Okay, so I have one sponsor. I've always only had one sponsor, and that's been right for me. I have heard of people having more than one sponsor. I guess really, as long as everybody knows, I don't know, I guess it can be potentially like you've got mom and you've got dad, right? And if dad says yes, I'm going to go ask mom. And if mom says no, or if dad says yes, or if dad says no, I'm going to go ask mom. And if mom says no. So I guess it really depends. As long as you're open and honest, I guess it would be okay. As long as everybody knows that you have two sponsors. Now, if you're in two different fellowships, so if you're in Sex Addicts Anonymous or Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, and you're also in AA, then yeah, you definitely want to have two sponsors because you want to have a sponsor for each program. If you're in Al-Anon and you're in AA, yes, you definitely want to have two sponsors. They're going to have, because the programs are different, and those are different issues. Although the behavior is the same, and it stems from the same thing. If you're in different programs, you definitely want to have two sponsors. But I don't really have a strong opinion as to what, and there might be other people out there that have stronger opinions on whether or not you can have more than one sponsor in the same fellowship. And I guess if you live in two different places, like let's say, for example, you spend 6 months in Arizona and you spend 6 months in Costa Rica, then having a sponsor in Costa Rica and having a sponsor in Phoenix or Arizona could be a good thing, I guess. So that's my answer on that one. Next question. Okay. If I drink or use drugs overseas, does it count as a relapse? That's a silly question. Yes, of course it counts. And I actually have a sponsee that recently, he lives in Arizona, he lives in Scottsdale, and I've been working with him for a little while, and he went to Canada for 6 weeks. And this is crazy, because he's in Canada, he decided not to call me every single day. He didn't call the other people because it's so hard to stay connected to people these days, right? We all have cell phones, and cell phones work everywhere in the world. So it doesn't really matter. There's no excuse to not stay connected to your sponsor. There's no reason not to stay connected to your people in recovery, in AA. So he was in Canada. He was hanging out with his girlfriend. He was actually quarantined for the first 14 days. It was during COVID. And he didn't call me. He didn't stay connected to other people in the rooms of AA. And he started listening to himself. Okay. Alex started listening to Alex. And Alex convinced himself that it's okay. I'm in Canada. Nobody will know. Nobody will find out. Meanwhile, it's crazy because the guilt and the shame associated with drinking and using and doing drugs, it doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter where you're at. People the reason you're not going to drink or use is for you. You're staying sober for you. You're not staying sober for someone else. Tim is staying sober for Tim. And if Tim drinks or uses in another country or in another state or whatever, Tim's going to know that Tim drank. Tim's going to know that Tim relapsed, just like Alex knows that Alex relapsed. And so that led to a relapse. And of course, it definitely counts. If you're in another country and you're struggling, guess what? There's AA meetings everywhere. Get online, find an AA meeting, call your sponsor, call other people that you know that are in the program, and let them know. Be open and be honest. Say, hey, I'm really struggling. Or even if you're not struggling, even if you just think that a drink sounds good, or you want to get high, it sounds good. You got to open up. Pause when agitated or doubtful. Pick up the phone. And of course, that's when the phone weighs 500 pounds. When you don't want to call your sponsor, you got to call your sponsor. When you don't want to go to a meeting, you've got to find a meeting. I was recently in Tulum, and there were 2 AA meeting halls. And it's like AA is everywhere. And even if they don't speak English, you're still going to understand. These are people that have the same disease that you have. And so my recommendation is to just make sure that you stay connected and also continue with your same routine. So you've got a morning routine. My morning routine is one of the most important things that I do every day. I wake up, I pray, I meditate, I do breath work, I journal, I write, I do a gratitude list. Those are the things that I do that help my day get started every single day. So if you have some sort of a morning routine, you hit your knees, you pray, whatever it is, make sure that you continue with that morning routine, whether you're at home, in another country, overseas, on a cruise ship, doesn't matter where you're at. Make sure that you stick with your morning routine, and that's going to help you stay spiritually fit and stay clean and sober. That way you won't have to collect another chip, a 24-hour chip. If I relapse, but not on my drug of choice, does it count as a relapse? So let's say you're a cocaine addict. So cocaine is your drug of choice, but you decide to drink. Does it count? Or alcohol is your drug of choice, but you take an opiate, you take a Percocet, you take a Lortab, you take a Vicodin, you take one of the other pills. And okay, so yes, my opinion, it counts as a relapse because it's a mind-altering substance. And I've seen lots of people that have gotten clean and sober, they're an alcoholic, and then they get on the marijuana maintenance program. So I'm still clean and sober from drugs and from alcohol. Alcohol was my drug of choice. Marijuana is not my drug of choice. So the marijuana is really becomes the solution. And so that kind of calms you down, makes you feel better. You don't have to drink because you smoke a little Mary Jane. And ultimately what ends up happening pretty much 100% of the time is it turns into alcohol. You smoke a little weed, and then next thing you know, you're drinking again. Or let's say cocaine is your drug of choice, opiates are your drug of choice, and alcohol, you didn't have a problem with alcohol. You only had a problem with cocaine and stimulants and all the other things. So I'm just going to drink a little bit. The drink always ends up leading to the drug. The drink, because you're not making good decisions. You're not thinking clearly. You're going to be triggered. You're going to get to, and it might not be today or tomorrow or next week or the week after or in a month or even 6 months, but eventually you're going to end up using again. That's just how it works 100% of the time. So this is a question for your sponsor. This is a question for people in your circle, people in recovery, people that you know. I say, yes, it counts as a relapse for sure, 100%. If you're on a mind-altering substance, then it counts as a relapse. After quitting drugs and alcohol, how do I avoid bad habits such as excessive sugar, caffeine, etc.? Okay, so this is a good question. And I know for me, once I got clean and sober, I I moved over to sugar. I mean, alcohol is sugar. So when I quit drinking, I started eating cake, pie, ice cream, jelly beans, Jolly Ranchers, like whatever I could get my hands on. That was what I went. And I started drinking a lot of coffee. I started drinking a pot of coffee every single day, and that was how to get my day started. So I don't know. I mean, excessive sugar is not good for you. And I gained like 20 pounds when I first got clean and sober. And because I definitely, and hey, that happens to a lot of people that get clean and sober, they're severely underweight. So if you're smoking crack and doing meth and you weigh 100 pounds and you're 5'11", I mean, you probably need to gain some weight. So I think that the excessive sugar would be the least of your worries. And the excessive caffeine is kind of the least of your worries. Really, I mean, hey, caffeine, sugar, cake, pie, ice cream, Jolly Ranchers, cigarettes, even. I don't smoke cigarettes. Actually, I had a nicotine habit from when I was 19 years old all the way until I got sober, and I got sober at 35. So I quit nicotine about a month after I got clean and sober. So that was what I did. And nicotine is not something that I would do, but hey, there's a lot of people that are clean and sober and nicotine is the only thing they have left. They feel like nicotine is the only thing they have left. So they still smoke and they eat lots of candy and sugar and pie. And hey, eventually, like for me, once I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to be fit. I wanted to take care of myself. And so more than anything, it's taking care of myself. And that's why I exercise on a daily basis. That's why I don't eat processed foods. That's why I cut down on the sugar as much as I don't eat processed sugar. I don't eat processed foods. I eat whole foods as often as I possibly can. I stay away from nicotine. So these are all things that I do to take care of myself because I want to feel good. Like I want to feel good. Alcohol, drugs made me feel like that. Eating, and occasionally I love nothing but cake. And so I'll eat, I mean, it's like you bust out a nothing but cake. I mean, next thing you know, I'm eating the whole freaking thing. And I literally feel hungover the next day. I don't feel good. So every once in a while I go back and I'll try it out. I mean, last night I had some pie from Pie Snob, which is amazing. The apple pie from Pie Snob is awesome. But I only had one piece. So I kind of controlled myself. So that was good. So avoiding other bad habits, I would say, I actually read something this morning from Joe Polish's new book, What's in It for Them. And he said, there are no such thing as bad habits. There are only habits that lead to bad results. And I've never thought about that before, but I think it's okay if we look at it that way. There's no such thing as I'm not a bad person, and I don't have bad habits. I just have habits that lead to bad results. So I want to stick with the habits that lead to good results. And so that's why I do all the things that I do. That's why I exercise on a regular basis. I surround myself with healthy people. I pray, I meditate, I do breath work. I go to the infrared sauna. I do an ice bath. I go to Optimize. I love Optimize because Optimize is focused on recovery and wellness. And the people that go to Optimize are focused on wellness and taking care of themselves. And so it's not just fitness, it's recovery. My good friend Larry Arnold, I saw him yesterday, and he's focused on recovery. And a lot of times, especially the alcoholic and the addict that goes all out, because I go all out. And when I'm all out on, doing Ironman a couple of times, I mean, that's all out. And doing F45. I mean, all of the things that I do, I go all out. And that's how alcoholics and addicts typically are. It's in our DNA to go 100%. So going 100% on the things that are good for us is not a bad thing, in my opinion, and in my experience. And I know that I need to go all in on recovery, which means the rolling, the stretching, the ice bath, the infrared sauna, the breath work, all the other things. And actually, NAD plus is something that is not talked about a lot, but NAD plus is for longevity health purposes. But recently, they just started talking about NAD health for addiction recovery, specifically opiate recovery, because the receptors in your, actually, I'm not even going to try to explain it because it's way over my head. But stay tuned for NAD plus and addiction recovery. I actually am going to get someone on my podcast to talk about that because it's a big thing, and NAD plus is very helpful. Is it okay to hang out with friends and family that still drink and drug? Okay, so you're going to have people in your life that still drink and drug. You're going to have people and probably, I mean, especially if you grew up in an alcoholic family, possibly you're going to have people that excessively drink, people that excessively use, people that are still in the disease. And for the most part, okay, so for me, I've got people in my life that still drink, they still use, they still drink excessively, they still do drugs, but I'm not really spending a lot of time with those people. The people that I spend a lot of time with are people that live the life that I want to live. And as Jim Rohn says, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So I spend time with people that have what I want. I can be around people that drink maybe a little more than I like or that I'm used to. And I mean, if I go to a birthday party or a wedding, for example, and people are drinking, I mean, kind of normal people, like if they're gonna drink excessively, a wedding or a party or New Year's Eve or something like that, or even holidays, that's when they're gonna drink excessively and they're gonna go overboard. Typically, I'm okay, but a lot of times it's just not fun for me. So I end up, I typically, I'll leave. I'll just leave. If I'm in an environment and I'm just not having, because it's not fun for me. It's not fun for me when people are totally wasted. So I typically will leave. And I mean, a lot of times I'll leave without saying goodbye. It's not a big deal. Like, I don't care. I could care less. And I don't take it personally. It doesn't matter. Hey, I'm an alcoholic. And I used to think when I was newly sober, I used to think, oh my gosh, that's so ridiculous. I'm clean and sober. And these people, they know I'm clean and sober. And I don't understand why they're drinking so much. And I don't understand why they're wasted. Guess what? It doesn't have anything to do with me. So today, I could care less. People can drink their faces off. They can do drugs. They can do whatever they want to do. It doesn't have anything to do with me. I can observe. I can be aware of it. And more than anything, I look at it and I'm like, wow, I'm so glad that's not me. I take it as an opportunity for me to learn and to grow. And a lot of times, so I have love and compassion because that used to be me. I'm not going to judge people. They do what they do because that's what they do. And I'm just going to continue being an example. I'm going to continue doing what I do. And many times those people end up coming back to me. Those people reach out to me. I don't judge them. And they reach out to me when they're ready, or when their family members are ready, or when they know somebody that's ready. I'm the person that they reach out to. I have people that reach out to me that I know from elementary school, from junior high, from high school, from college, from different parts of my life. People reach out to me because I'm clean and sober. I'm doing the next right thing. And I'm just here to help as many people as I possibly can. So if you're clean and sober and that's you, or if you want to be clean and sober, eventually that's the perspective that I've found to be most helpful for me. I'm just here to help people. And when people are in the disease, it's because they're in pain. It's because they're looking for a solution. It's because they just want to feel better. Like, that's it. People just want to feel better. That's the only reason people drink and use. It's because they want to feel better. It's the solution. And they've got trauma. They have something underneath it. And when they get to a place when they're ready, you being the person in recovery, you get to help them. And I can't tell you a better way to hold you accountable. I can't tell you a better thing that holds me accountable than just knowing that I'm clean and sober. And there's a lot of people that are looking at me. There's a lot of people that are looking up to me. There's a lot of people that want what I have. And as long as I feel good about my behavior and I'm continuing to do the next right thing, there's going to be people that continue to want what I have, which is more accountability for me to continue doing the next right thing. And I'm just here to help people. And once you get to a place where you just want to help people, then that's when you get to being happy, joyous, and free. We lie, cheat, and steal because we want fulfillment. And really the way to fulfillment is by being of service and helping other people. And when you get to that place where you get to help other people, you get to experience the freedom and the happiness and the joy that comes with being clean and sober and working a program. So I kind of went off on a tangent, but there you go. How do I know if a sponsor is right for me? Well, my first answer is he's your sponsor. That's how you know he's the sponsor that's right for you. And I guess, so my experience with this, it's more important to have a sponsor than to have the perfect sponsor. I mean, I've seen people, they look for the perfect sponsor. The problem with looking for the perfect sponsor is that you don't get a sponsor. And then the next thing you know, you relapse and you're out. It's more important to get a sponsor because that's part of working a 12-step program. Like, your best thinking got you where you are today. So the best thing you can do is get a sponsor, go to a meeting every single day. For me, I went to my first AA meeting March 8th, 2011. That was my very first meeting. I met a bunch of people. They gave me a big book. They told me to go to a meeting every single day. They told me which meeting to go to. So taking suggestions. I went to Prince of Peace the very next day. There was a guy named Ray. He came up to me and he said, "Do you have a sponsor?" And I said, "No." He said, "Okay, I'll be your temporary sponsor." So I got kind of lucky. I mean, I think I was open to it. And if you don't have a sponsor, just get a sponsor. And there are lots of meetings out there and they say, "Hey, who doesn't have a sponsor? Raise your hand." And then, of course, you got to make sure you raise your hand. And they say, "Don't leave without getting a sponsor." You can get a new sponsor. So for me, I got a sponsor. Ray was my sponsor. He met with me every week. And I remember thinking, okay, this guy is great. He's working a program. He's been sober for a long time. He has what I want in terms of sobriety and recovery. And he was always there for me. I called him every single day and I met with him and I did step work, which I'm helping him because I'm, every time he goes through, I know as a sponsor, every time I go through the steps, even though sometimes it's a pain in the butt and I don't want to do it, I know it always helps me. It's always a good thing. So I remember thinking, geez, I don't know if this is the right guy for me. And then I came across another guy and he had different things in his life that I was attracted to, meaning business and his family life and his personal life. And so he had some interests that were more in line with my interests, meaning like hobbies and interests and so forth. And so I ended up switching sponsors and I got a different sponsor and his name was Todd, and Todd was my sponsor for 7 years and he was amazing. He was amazing. And then eventually I got to a spot where I realized that it was time for me to move on and get a different sponsor. So that was kind of my experience with it. It's more important to have a sponsor. And if you're being sponsored by a guy or a gal that you think might not be the perfect sponsor for you, then you can start opening up. Now, that leads to another question. And I'm going to get to that because that's another question. When is it time to fire a sponsor? When is it time to get a new sponsor? So there's different reasons for it. And so it's more important to have a sponsor than to have the perfect sponsor. But I would say stick with a sponsor. Just make sure you have a sponsor and don't fire your sponsor until you have another sponsor. That's my answer on that one. Okay, that leads me to the next question. How do I fire my sponsor? Okay, so having hard conversations is something that I learned to do while being in recovery. And there's a saying, life is easy if you live it the hard way and hard if you live it the easy way. And so me, before I got clean and sober, I didn't want to have hard conversations. And relationships that I was in, as opposed to quit my job, end a relationship, I would sabotage the relationship. I would turn into an asshole. I would cheat. I would lie. I would do whatever I needed to do to get out of the relationship without having to have the hard conversation. And I see it in life. People don't want to have hard conversations. In AA, I've learned to have hard conversations. And if you have the hard conversation, life is way easier. So telling your sponsor, hey, it's not going to work out. It's not hard. It's easy. Like it sounds harder than it's going to be. Play the tape forward. And typically, I think 100% of the time, if you tell your sponsor that you found another sponsor that you want to work with, he's going to say, great. I support you. I'm grateful that I got to spend time with you, however much time you ended up spending with them. And I'm here for you, whatever you need from me. As long as your sponsor is healthy, then that's going to be the response, something along those lines. So firing your sponsors is as easy as a conversation, and you take it as an opportunity for growth. I took it as an opportunity for growth, and having hard conversations makes life a lot easier. Trust me. Okay, next question. How do I find a safe place to work if I am newly sober? So this is something that I've seen. This is actually a really good question, because you have people that are newly sober and maybe they lost their job, they lost their family, their wife left them, your husband left you, whatever it may be. And so I've seen this go several different ways. So for me, I can't really speak to this because I didn't lose my job when I got sober. I had my job, so I continued with my job. What they say is it's best to get a recovery job. If you don't have a job, it's best. What I've seen is it's best to get a recovery job. A recovery job means it's not a super stressful job. You're not working 50 or 60 hours a week out the gate. You're not hitting a home run. This isn't something that's going to be your job forever. And so I've got a few examples of this. We had a guy that went through our program, went through the Camelback Recovery Sober Living program. His name was Patrick. And Patrick was a professional, but he lost his job. His wife left him. And so he was separated. His kids were living with his wife. He went to inpatient treatment. After inpatient treatment, and he was a professional. He had a good job. He had an education. And so it'd be easy for him to go out and get another good job. But he realized that he put his recovery first, which is the only way it works, is if you put your recovery first. So he put his recovery first. He went to inpatient treatment for 30 days or 45 days. He went to inpatient treatment. After inpatient treatment, he went to sober living. He stayed in one of our homes. He did sober living, and he did outpatient treatment. And then after that, I've seen this a lot where people say that, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in sober living. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in treatment. I want to get back to living my life. I need to take care of my family. I need to take care of my kids. I need to make more money. And it never works. That never works. That always leads to relapse. And I'll get to a story. I have a story about that, an example. It's a really sad story, but it's real, and I've seen it. So Patrick, inpatient treatment, sober living, outpatient treatment. Again, this is a professional. And then he comes on board and becomes a house manager for us at Camelback Recovery. His skill set is way above being a house manager. And that's the key. And so it doesn't have to be, hey, you become a house manager, but he wanted to be a house manager because being a house manager meant that it was continued accountability. He had to continue working a 12-step program, going to meetings, having a sponsor, meeting with his sponsor, doing all of the things because when you're in your addiction, when you're drinking, when you're using, typically you're drinking or using for who knows how long, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So it takes more than 30 days in inpatient treatment, 90 days in sober living. It takes more time to really reprogram the way that you think and develop new healthy lifestyle habits. If you go back to that highly stressful job, especially if you're starting a new job and it's a skilled position, it's going to cause stress. The stress could potentially lead to a relapse. That's the trigger. And especially if you want your wife back, you want your kids back, you want your career back, you want to start making more money, all of these things, it's just too much. So a recovery job so Patrick, again, becomes a house manager. He was a house manager for us for 6 months. And then he went out while still a house manager for us, and he started looking for jobs. And he ended up getting a job at Intel, and it was a high paying job. So he's a professional, he's making great money, and he has good relationships. He's mended his relationships with his kids, with his wife, with his significant other, and he's back at home, and like he's doing things the correct way. And so that's the right way to do it. So you don't have to go out and become a house manager, but getting a job that's not highly stressful. So work at a coffee shop, go get a job go with Etc. by Emily and get a job working 20 hours a week, drive for Uber. I drove for Uber for a while, and it was great. It was perfect. It was perfect for me. I got to drive around. It was not stressful, and I got to just talk with people. Occasionally I'd get someone in my car that was drunk, and it was just a good reminder to me, like, hey, that is not what I want to look like. That's not what I want my life to look like. That's not who I want to be. So a job that is a recovery job, not stressful, working at the movie theaters, driving for Uber, driving for Lyft, driving for Instacart, go get a job with Etc. by Emily. So those are the types of things. You're not trying to hit a home run. You're not trying to make a ton of money. You just want to get a job to keep you busy and to do something different, maybe put a little bit of money in your pocket. That's it. Okay, so, all right, I need to go back, actually. No, I'm going to keep on going forward. I have another story that I forgot to include. It was a story about a guy who was in our sober living, and he interviewed to being a house manager for Camelback Recovery. He was a guy that was kind of clean and sober for a while, in and out of the rooms. And he was in and out of treatment multiple times. And he was high level. So he made great money, great pay. He's had great paying jobs. And I remember he interviewed for us at Camelback Recovery, and he declined the position because he needed to make more money, because he needed to take care of his wife or his ex-wife. He needed to take care of his kids, and he needed to make more money. And so he kind of skipped the recovery process. And of course, going out and trying to get that high paying job leads to working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, leads to more stress, leads to a relapse. And in this guy's case, he relapsed and he died. He overdosed and he died. And so now his family his kids don't even have a dad. And his ex-wife doesn't have a husband. I mean, he's dead now. He's gone. And that's so sad. So recovery, alcoholism, it's life or death. This disease is life or death. So taking suggestions, just understand you're where you are, and taking suggestions and doing the things that other people are telling you should do is probably a good thing, because your best thinking got you where you are today. And I'm going to say that over and over and over again. Okay, next question. How do I know when I have overcome the obsession? How do I know when I've overcome the obsession? Well, okay, that's kind of a hard question to answer. I don't have the desire to drink or use. I don't know how long it took. I don't remember how long it took me, but I don't necessarily know if you want to go out and test. I think you want to go out and test. It's about not when you're new. I mean, at least when you're in your first year. Okay, so I guess when you're in your first year, I would say you want to do everything you can to give yourself a chance at staying clean and sober. More than 90% of people are going to relapse in their first year. Okay, the next big hurdle is 5 years. And if you stay sober for 5 years, you've got an 85% chance that you're going to stay sober for life. Okay, but I would say at least make it to a year. But regardless, whether you're before a year or after a year, you just want to make sure, I would say making sure that you have safeguards in place. I remember I had a girl or a woman that used to work for us, and I think she was about 2 years sober. She was about 2 years sober. And I remember she went on vacation with a couple of friends that were not in recovery. And I don't necessarily know if they were alcoholics or drug addicts, but when people go on vacation that are not in recovery, a lot of times going on vacation is the time when they're going to blow off some steam, and they're going to want to go out to bars, and they're going to want to drink, and they're going to want to do things that we did when we were in our alcoholism and drug addiction, or when we were in our disease. So I remember this woman went out. She went on this vacation, and I remember her. She came. She didn't relapse, but she just said it wasn't very fun. It wasn't very fun, and so going on vacation with people that are not going to, I like spending time with people that are going to support my recovery. I like spending my time with people. I like going on vacation with people that are going to support my recovery. And so I went to Tulum recently. I was there for 10 days. I was with my girlfriend. She's a normie. She'll have a glass of wine or a drink every once in a while, but not really when she's around me. And I don't think she had one single drink when we were on vacation. And she just if she was with people that were, I guess, normies as well, and they were drinking like normal people, she probably would have had a cocktail, or she probably would have had a glass of wine or something like that. But because she was with me, she doesn't like the way that she feels anyways when she has a glass of wine or a cocktail. So she supports my recovery. That's who I like spending my time with. But I also have people that I spend time with that are normies, like my family members. They're like my sisters. They like to have a cocktail. And when I'm with them, and when I'm with my family, people in my family, my whole family, I'm not from a family of alcoholics and drug addicts. So at holidays, my family members, they're kind of drinking like normal people. And there's some of them that drink excessively, and I don't have the obsession. So that it's never triggering for me. So I guess really, are you getting triggered? And if you're getting triggered, then you probably still have the obsession. But I think that the obsession can come and go. And really, it comes back to your spiritual fitness. And so I know for me, if I'm spiritually fit, I don't have the desire to drink and use, because my life is so good today. And I don't ever want to jeopardize what I have in my life, and the people I have in my life, and the people that I attract. So I don't ever have the obsession. And I think the reason I don't ever have the obsession is because I do all the things that I do. I go to meetings. I stay connected to the 12-step program. I see a therapist on a regular basis. There's lots of things that I do. I do yoga. I exercise. I take care of myself. I do breath work. I do infrared. I go to the infrared sauna. I do ice baths. I do all of these things that help me
stay sane. And because otherwise, because I'm crazy. When I'm in my disease, when I was in my disease, I'm a freaking disaster. And you can ask anybody that knows me pre-sober. I'm a disaster. And I do everything 1,000%. I remember my stepmom telling me, I don't remember how she said it exactly, but she said, everything you do, you just do it. You go overboard. You're so excessive. And this is, I think, before I got clean and sober. And so it was not really like a constructive conversation. I don't think it was a bad conversation, but she just pointed it out that everything I do 100%. And I'm upset and I'm excessive, over the top. And so for me, I'm over the top with taking care of myself, which means my spiritual fitness is on point. So that's the thing. Are you spiritually fit? And that's why we say, or that's why it is said, that you've got to continue doing the things that helped you get clean and sober, doing the things that you learned in your first 30 days, in your first 60 days, in your first 90 days, in your first 6 months, in your first year. The people that relapse are the people that get away from doing the things that they did that helped them get clean and sober. We are reprogramming the way that we live. I've reprogrammed the way that I live. And spiritual fitness is like being physically fit. So to be physically fit, you don't just go to the gym and get in shape and then stop going to the gym. If you stop going to the gym, you're going to lose your physical fitness. And so I think getting in shape physically, it's hard to do. But then once you're in shape physically, you still have to continue eating the right foods and you still have to continue exercising. That's the same thing with spiritual fitness. It's harder to get to become spiritually fit. But once you're spiritually fit, it's easier to maintain, but you have to continue doing those things that you did when you first got clean and sober. So again, these are all my opinions. And if you want to find out more, you want to learn more, you want to hear more from me, then subscribe to my channel. If you or a loved one is struggling with alcohol or drugs, you can reach out to camelbackrecovery.com, and I will see you on the next video.